All right. So, as it says in the title for the video, I'm going to be reviewing the book Kim's Lost Words. It was written by Jamal T. Millwood, and it's quote unquote for Kimberly Porter. Sorry. It was independently published. Before, let's see, I have so many thoughts on this book. It took me 30 minutes to read it. Each chapter is ridiculously like 1 to 2 pages, 3 pages in a sentence at most. Um, it's not worth your money, and I'll explain why as I go through it. But I do want to kind of point out the disclaimer that he had in there, which he's basically saying that her final wishes were that this memoir was to be made public, and then lets everybody know that out of protection for certain people and their criminal activities or so-called criminal activities, or however you want to say it, celebrities, performers, events. Some have been represented with X's. I think that I only actually noticed one that's marked as XXXXX due to their highly explosive nature. And then he does claim that in the future, evidence will be like revealed to the public. And then to top that off, he goes on to say that evidence does exist out there of Kim's sudden removal from Earth and the mysterious illnesses of Albie Schur and Jamie Foxx. And then it says, God bless Kim Porter and all of Sean Combs' victims, both male and female. And while I do absolutely agree with that part, obviously, because any victim, however, like I said, as I go through and I broke down each chapter because, again, they were only a couple pages long. And I took notes on it. And even though the initial read only took me 30 minutes, I spent hours and hours just doing research on certain things because I like to make sure, like, if I'm going to say that something's not real or however I want to word something, I want to know that I have those facts. So I fact check everything I read. I can't watch a time period TV show or movie without fact checking stuff. It's just who I am. I love researching anyways. So before I get into the book, I will say that Kim and Diddy's kids did come together and put out a statement, and quote their claimant, or their statement is, oh my goodness, sorry. They said, quote, claims that our mom wrote a book are simply untrue. She did not. And anyone claiming to have a manuscript is misrepresenting themselves. The statement reads, any so-called friend speaking on behalf of our mom or her family is not a friend, nor do they have her best interests at heart. So I just thought that her kids need to also be heard, especially when it comes to information that's being put out there and somebody is trying to claim that these are their mom's words. I think that their words need to be heard, and I take what they say more value than what some guy who claims he got this information off flash drives. And like I said, we'll go through it. But let's talk about who this author really is. So he writes this under the name of Jamal T. Millwood. However, his real name is Todd Christopher Guzze, or it's Guzze. However you want to say it, that's fine. He goes by Chris Todd, which makes it so much easier for me. He says his occupation is investigative producer, author, and journalist. Ooh, let's talk about his investigative skills. But moving on from that, let's just go ahead and get to the first chapter. The first chapter is the introduction. Really quickly also, I have to say that Albie Schur and Jamie Foxx have both made statements because it was in that first little part up there. They have both made statements that show that they believe that Diddy was involved in their near-death experiences. So I will put that out there for this. But going into the introduction, which is chapter 1, it's literally like one page, and all it does is briefly mention her relationship with both Albie and Diddy. I mean, it's just basically, her whirlwind romance, and she was only 19 when she got married to Albie, and then she got pregnant with Quincy, who's it's so hard to say her word like she says, because I honestly don't believe that 99% of these things she actually wrote. So if I say she says, it's just because of the way the book is reading, but I do not believe these are necessarily her words. And if anything, I do not believe that this guy just fell upon these flash drives with her diary on it, and you'll see what I mean when I get to it. It talks about how Sean was so charming, a wolf in sheep's clothing, and he was really just a devil, and she fell for it, that kind of thing. That is literally it. That first page of the first chapter, one page, it ends with Sean Combs must be stopped. We move on to chapter 2, Humble Beginnings. She talks about this is kind of where I have some more, like, this is where my problems really started. Well, aside from this whole book is a problem. In chapter 2, Humble Beginnings, it's literally 1.5 pages. That's it. And Clive is mentioned, but only to say he was Sean's boss. Then it moves to toys Sean wanted her to use on him. So, like, just so. If you hear about the freak offs and stuff like that, and it's not hard to just make some stuff up and be like, oh, but he was into this. And it's like I said, salacious, scandalous. It reads like this entire thing reads like a tabloid. She speaks. She speaks about how amazing Sean was, and an amazing father, and Quincy was, and so many names. Albie Sure was an awesome father to Quincy, but then we have Quincy later coming out and saying that he doesn't even have a relationship with Albie Sure, which I'm kind of sad about, but he's closer to Diddy, who raised him. So then she talks about meeting Sean, and he was cool. She didn't really think much of him at the time, and don't worry, because I don't either. He was just another guy at the label. He laid on the charm. She kind of fell for it. She talks about how Clive and Sean would hang out a lot, and then the first time that Sean wanted her to use a toy on him, it talks about how she was grossed out and didn't want to do it, but Sean was like, just this once, I just want to try it, this kind of thing. And then it talks about bleeding on it, and like, it's just, there's some stuff that just is. She says, I left him alone after that. That's the end of chapter 2. That's it. I'm literally wrapping it up, because there's nothing more you could say about this damn book. Second Chances is chapter 3. It's 2 pages, 3 sentences. It is now going to bring up, and I think he's in the next one. So, is he? Or is he in this one? I'm sorry. So this right here is Notorious B.I. from Mississippi Dub Boys. In this chapter, it talks about how basically Biggie's song was like, it was off that sample, and then basically like they stole his name and all of that stuff going on about Biggie. It's just too much, I'm telling you. Then she talks about how like everybody was kind of, actually, it says that the Notorious B.I. is quote unquote West Coast, but he's from Mississippi, and I'm from California, and that's West Coast. I've never considered, if somebody else does, let me know. I never consider Mississippi West Coast. So again, this guy just bothers me with his writing. I'm like, I don't know where he gets his information from, but I don't know if anybody on the East Coast or the West Coast is going to say that Mississippi is either completely East Coast or completely West Coast, because, yeah. Moving on. Here she, or see, told you, I'm going to be saying she because of the way the book reads. It talks about, like, Diddy trying to get on her good side and kind of butter her up and get all of these things, gentlemen, and showing her a good time and basically love bombing her, for lack of better words at the moment. After that, she goes on and implies that Clive and Sean were in a S relationship. I'm just going to put it that way just to save myself. I mean, it talks about how, after that first time with the toy, and she was like, I don't want to see you any, that was gross, blah, blah, blah. Then all of a sudden is when in chapter 3, he starts love bombing her and telling her, oh, I love her, like all this stuff. And then it says that he then asked her to do the toy again. And then I'll actually read a quote from the book where it says that Sean said, quote, baby, I can't stop thinking about it, unquote. And then they have an argument. And then apparently he asks her basically to please do it one more time. And she got mad at him and quote said, quote, why don't you go to Clive? He is the one screwing you, isn't he? Unquote. This is the first time in this book it mentions Sean hitting her and then begging for her forgiveness. Like, again, sending, like, not again because this is the first time it's mentioned in the book, but he's sending her flowers and expensive gifts. And when they would run into each other, he would sit down next to her and then pour on the baby I'm sorries and all of that stuff. I'm telling you, it's all tabloid. I'm sorry, but this is like, and again, I will get to that. Then she looks like, basically in here, it's stating that she's looking at him and saying, but he loves her son, and he's a good dad to Quincy and all of this stuff. And she was kind of falling back for it. So, yeah, he was great with Quincy. And to be honest, despite everything, I missed him. These are, quote, it's a quote out of the book. Those are not my words. And then it goes on to say, like, what the F is wrong with me? That's the end of that chapter. That's it. I'm telling you, not worth $22. Chapter 4. Oh, the reason I have it, for the slides, basically all I did was gather up all the names that are mentioned in this book that are tied to Diddy, and then even some that are in here that are just kind of fascinating, because I think that a lot of people, especially like the younger kids, like I'm not really all that young anymore, but I think the younger ones don't realize that Tupac and Biggie were friends before everything happened. But I'll save that for later too. So I think that when you're reading this book, it's information. Like I said, when it comes to Humble Beginnings, basically it lays out her life, but all you have to do for that, rather than paying $22 for this book, is Wikipedia her. It gives you all of that information. He did not need her diary, quote unquote, diary entries to figure out where she went to school or where she met Al B. Sure, or he just didn't. He could have just Wikipedia'd it, and that was it. So chapter 4 goes to forgiveness, and he's begging her to come back, and then has a babysitter for Quincy and is telling her, let's go out. And so they went out for the night. This book is so freaking, it's so, The babysitter arrived. They left. As they exited the house, a big man climbed out of the limo and opened the door for us. This is where we find out that was Gene, one of the bodyguards. I believe he was a bodyguard. And she says that, after this day, she would be seeing a lot of him. End of chapter. That's it. Oh, okay. So, chapter 5. In chapter 5, the title is Sean Kneels. A little over 2 pages, I find in this one, she does talk about voodoo and like spiritual like stuff with voodoo and everything like that, which I did kind of find interesting only because you have to think about what you hear about, I think it's some of Beyonce's assistants or former, not current assistants, but former assistants who have said that Beyonce was practicing voodoo on them, and I don't know what's wrong with this group of people, but Jay-Z and Beyonce apparently, allegedly, are also into that whole voodoo thing. But again, that's something that you don't have to read in somebody's diary. You can just Google it. I love Google. After talking about the voodoo, it moves on to various people they brought into the bed with them. So here we learn about Mary J. Blige, which I think is on the next one. Maybe. Who knows? I think Mary J. Blige is a little further. But, yeah. Is Mary J. Blige in that one? I have so many people. There we go. Mary J. Blige. Okay. Anyhow, it talks about all of these people that they are now bringing into the bed with them, and how at first Kim got in a fight with Diddy because before Mary J. Blige, sorry. And again, this is all allegedly because I don't know what happened with all of them. I have not gone down that rabbit hole with Mary J. Blige, like her music. But I haven't gone completely down that rabbit hole. I was going down too many other rabbit holes. But there was a fight between Kim and Diddy because he had cheated on Kim with Mary. And then eventually they were all hooking up because she found Mary really beautiful, or I don't remember the exact words that she used, but she was enticing, or Mary was sexy. And in the book, it says that Kim said that she was young and exploring her sexuality. It was enticing. So at that point, they talk about bringing other women into the bed. But then we go down to I'll Be Sure. It is oh my God, I hate the way this is written. She then has to kind of, okay, I'm going to ask. I had diaries growing up. I don't think that, there are just certain things that in a diary, we don't write. There are other things that, yeah, we're going to write, like our crushes and this kind of stuff and that. But there are certain details in our diary we are not going to write because, A, if I keep that diary, I guarantee you I do not want my kids to read that someday. Not that I did this stuff. I'm just saying I was a dumb kid like most people, and I did stupid things. But so to sit there and say that she wrote some of this drives me nuts. Apparently, she says that, and also, who writes I'll Be Sure? Like, she's got to write his full name every time in an entry. Like, if I had nicknames for my boyfriends or, like, even my kids, I don't call them by their full names. I call them by their nicknames. And I'm not going to sit there in a diary and write my son's full name every time I'm writing about him if I was still keeping a diary. So, but she does. According to him, she does. She puts everybody's names out there like they didn't have nicknames for each other, like they were just on some kind of formal level with each other. You have to call each other by your full names. Very bizarre. But then it talks about how now I'll Be Sure and Diddy are sitting there, and they're like, Sean's talking about how how we sometimes invite other people into our bed, and she's like, where are you going with this? And I'll Be Sure sitting there, and Sean's talking about how, oh, well, we've all, done things together, but not all together. Meaning that, him and Al do their thing, and then her and Al have done their thing, and her and Diddy are doing their thing. And so now let's just all go and do it together. She is incredulous by this because she's like, wait, hold on. He's the father of my kid, first of all. This is really, really effing weird. And then it goes on to basically her asking, are you sure you guys are both okay with it? I mean, I'm telling you, and when I make that voice, it is not on her because, again, I do not think these are her words. Her own kids don't think these are her words. So I'm making fun of the writer. I'm not making fun of Kim at all. Apparently, she thought that it would be awkward, in the bed because there'd be some bumping of genitals, that kind of thing. But she said that basically she couldn't even dream of what was going to happen because Al, and that's a whole lot of X's. And then it says, quote, I couldn't believe it. I stood there in shock. But when Sean XXX, I ran out of the room. This was too much. I couldn't. Sean called out to me. Oh, come on, Kimmy. They didn't chase after me. They yeah. She says she couldn't get It says she couldn't get the image out of her mind and she couldn't be with Sean for a while, but that wouldn't be the last time she saw him in a awkward situation, or no. Mm-hmm. It's really freaking weird. But it also says that she found the vault where he kept all of his encounters with men, and then says, quote, yes, he kept a record of it, but that's for later, unquote. That's the end of that chapter. Oh, my goodness. I'm telling you, I'm sorry. I don't like when writers, or what would you call, like, he's a tabloid writer. This isn't even good writing. The typos and everything else, I do not believe. I know. Well, I didn't know her personally, but I've heard her speak and I've, seen her and other things. I do not think she's illiterate, and this guy kind of makes her seem like she. It's so offensive. We go down to chapter 6, the Pac chapter, Tupac. So here we read claims that he was sleeping with the guys that really controlled the music. Then, it goes on basically saying that, Tupac was sitting there and he had a relationship, like an S relationship with Kim Porter. And then they were all sitting around one day, and Diddy, who was very jealous of other men's how do I phrase? I don't know how I'm supposed to be able to phrase that without it being. So he was jealous of what other men had in their pants compared to what he had in his. We'll just say that. And so there were often fights about that too. But now it's talking about like he wanted to do like some kind of either a threesome with Pac, or then it turned into something where it was like, oh, well, I bet I can F her. It's like better than you, basically. It was like a competition all of a sudden. And she's sitting there like, what are you talking about? And in this, it has Pac like being like, what the F are you talking about? You're disrespecting her. Why are you doing that to? It's, again, this guy, I do not like the writer of this at all. But since we are on Pac really quickly, can I just once again point out that Pac and Biggie, look at that. They were friends before Diddy, just saying. Okay. it goes on to talk about how my junk is bigger than yours, and I can make her faster than you can. I hate YouTube sometimes. I'm like trying so hard to tiptoe around words. There are certain words I absolutely won't say, but I am tiptoeing around words. So then he talks to, he sits there and is like, you talking about, or it says that Tupac said, like, you talking about pulling your effing D out, and Sean was undaunted by it and said, what, you scared? It's like, come on. Tupac just gets up and leaves. He's like, done. After that, apparently, all of a sudden things were really awkward between her and Pac, and like there was no communicating. But now this is the grounds of where we get into why Pac got shot at the studio. And it goes into like a conversation that she overheard Sean and Jimmy Henchman having, basically saying, Pac, don't leave that effing studio alive and stuff like that. And so now we're getting into those conspiracy theories. And again, on this one, I'm not going to sit there and say it's a conspiracy theory necessarily, because we have seen evidence of this one to where we do know. I personally believe, because Diddy didn't go to prison for it, but I personally do believe he had a hand in that shooting at the studio. But I get so freaking riled up when I read lies, though, because this guy is so outlandish, it's ridiculous. So then that's that conversation. They're having it during, like, she walks into the, I think it was in some room. I don't know if it was his office or whatever, but she's walking into the room, and this is where she overhears the conversation between Jimmy Henchman and Diddy, and they're talking about how Pac's basically got to go, and she's saying, the dude that wrote the book is saying that she was saying it was because, he couldn't get what he wanted out of Pac. And, Diddy does seem really freaking petty like that. But again, I wasn't there. And because this reads like so much of a tabloid, I don't know what to believe and what not to believe. I do believe that he had a hand in that shooting at the studio, though. That's just my personal opinion. Can't guarantee. So she comes in and she hears that, but then she has to pretend like she's not hearing anything of what they said. So she's like, hey, I'm ordering breakfast. You guys want anything? And all of that happens. She says she wasn't in, or it says she wasn't in the studio, but Pac survived that shooting. However, he made it to the elevator and tried to escape, but it stopped at the floor that Diddy and Biggie were on. They didn't call an ambulance. They didn't do anything. So obviously, I mean, I'm just saying, it just, and then this chapter ends with basically it was orchestrated, and Sean Puffy Combs was the orchestrator. Okay. So we know that Tupac survived that one, although it does say that he lost one testicle. But on that one, I didn't bother to look because I don't need to know about Tupac's testicles. Sorry. I just don't. That's his business, not mine. Chapter 7, we go into, which one am I on? Oh, let's go here. So in chapter 7, we go to threats. On this one, Diddy apparently was insecure about what he had in his pants compared to, say, Tupac and Jamie Foxx or any other man bigger than him. And in this, it claims that, Jamie Foxx was part of this this inner circle of everybody passing everybody around and swapping partners, and, men were with men and women with women and men and women. It's, threesomes, foursomes, tensome, like all of this stuff. So now I want to listen to Hit 'Em Up, but not the point. Sorry. Okay. Now, after we get through that part, it then talks about how now Jay-Z and Diddy are sleeping together. And again, I'm not going to say that they are, and I'm not going to say that they're not, because what happens in their bed is their business, not mine. But in the book, it really does seem like what the guy is doing, and it continued. Like I am trying as best as I can to shorten these up as much as I can, because again, they're only like 1 to 2, 3 pages at the most. But the information in here is just not even information. This is not news. This is stuff that everybody, these are conspiracy theories. These are things that we're hearing in the lawsuits. These are things that you can just Google. So why spend your money? I'm just saying. All right. Am I at chapter 8 now? Let's go to chapter 8. Oh, I forgot. He's still now talking about big D's and stuff like that and all this stuff. And it's just on and on and on and on. That, I think that was the longest. This might be the longest chapter because it's more than 2 pages. But then it talks about Jamie Foxx, and because I enjoy Jamie Foxx, or because it says in the book as her saying that she enjoyed Jamie Foxx too much, so she got a beating. And oh man, okay. And then Carter came over and they're talking to each other, and it gets into like a kind of this thing to where now they're actually discussing. Okay, here, I'm going to break down like this. This is the easiest way I'm going to break down. Kidada Jones, who was Tupac's fiance at the time and the daughter of Quincy Jones, right? This is at an awards show. Now, they're all sitting down at a table. Kidada comes up and basically is confronting Pac about the stuff that Pac's talking. That Diddy's talking, because Diddy's talking about how they're going to clean up all the awards and stuff like that. And she comes over and she's standing up for Pac because Pac can't be there. He's been shot. Wonder who did it. And then she even points out that, and like there's this whole argument at the table. I think I just skipped a little bit ahead, but that's okay because it's all in the book. It's about loyalty, right? This one's about loyalty, I believe. So it talks about Kidada, but in the last chapter still, this is where it talks about how Biggie, as before it ends, it's talking about how Biggie and Pac were about to start their own label, and therefore, let's not do that. And therefore, Diddy needed to get rid of Biggie because Biggie's worth more gone than he is here, and it's about loyalty. And if you're not going to be loyal, then what are you around for anyways? Because it's so crazy. It's like, and he's talking to, so this is where it pulls people, it's pulling people in. Like, I don't personally like Jay-Z. I'm sorry for anybody who does. I just think that once him and Beyonce got together, the two of them kind of got too big for their own britches and started doing some crazy things. And I just kind of stopped listening to most of their music. I don't know if I've heard any songs from like that I've really paid attention to since Single Ladies or since that album. And then for Jay-Z, I'm trying to think about what the last like big song of his was that I remember really liking, and I can't right now. Was it the one with Alicia Keys? Anyhow, doesn't matter. So now, but my point is, this guy is dragging Jay-Z into the conversation on getting rid of Biggie. He's just pulling all these names into the story. It's like, okay, if the feds didn't think that they already had enough to deal with just with Diddy and the freaking freak-offs and the lawsuits and the baby oil and firearms and the happy time adult substances and the trafficking, if they didn't think that they already had enough, this guy just added a whole lot more to the plate, unless, you know, they can read it like I'm reading it and be like, okay, well, this is all tabloid. This is tabloid. And I'm not saying that every single thing in here is wrong. I'm just saying that it's not information that he got necessarily from her. This is stuff that you could find on the internet. It frustrates me. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to keep my calm here, but it's so frustrating. So, like, it goes on, as they're having that conversation, Sean looked at Carter blinking. I'm going to read this part. So, okay, I respect that. Carter kept going. Oh, because apparently Carter thought that he was going to take Biggie's place. Basically, he's going to be the top dog now. And so then Diddy finds like, oh, okay, yeah, you know, I can respect that. Yeah, you want to get rid of somebody so you can move up? Yeah, I respect that. It's like, again, not saying it's not true, just saying that it's insane. But, you know, quote unquote, Diddy does love honesty and ambition. We're going to make a lot of, again. And it says, guess he won't be leaving with that and to do their own label now. Because I will never even read that word. Not my place. Sean tells him, why don't you let me worry about that? So basically, again, like just cutting it down. You know, she, at this time in the book, she's saying, okay, you know, she wants to bounce out of this conversation. Although I do find it really convenient for the person who wrote this, that you find that there are no other conversations that she's overhearing about, like after, like, because we'll get to it in a second, but you're not going to hear about the conversations about, you know, the after or the during, like when something happened and things were breaking out on the news, or, you know, Biggie was fighting for his life or Tupac was fighting for his life. You don't hear those stories. You only hear these half stories of like her walking into conversations and then trying to find her way out of the conversation. So in this instance, she found her way out of the conversation by basically saying that she had to get back to Quincy, the son. And so he's like, okay, yeah, I have the limo drop you off. She says, yeah, you know, at this point, you know what I mean. We didn't eat. He didn't care. I smiled and kissed him on the cheek and left. Boom. End of chapter. Yay. Let's move on. This guy's he's a clown. I'm telling you, the guy's a clown. I have so many reasons why, but okay, let's go to chapter 8. I thought I already had, but okay. So this is the fight that Kidada Jones has with him at the awards show. Sorry, told you I thought I got ahead of myself. I did. So she confronts Diddy about Pac being shot and talking about how Pac has good music too. And Diddy's sitting there trying to say how he's going to clean up and all of that stuff. It's, you know, it's really odd that here it talks about how Kimora, Sean, and her had all been together in the bedway, and but not his. Let's see. It talks about Kidada and Tupac being like a really cute couple, and they actually are. They really, really were a cute couple. Let me go back up to them really quickly, just because they were really, really cute. They were adorable. I'm sorry. So we're going to go on to how with Pac's shooting and the suspicions surrounding Sean and Jimmy, the vibes between Kidada, everything was kind of falling apart. It wasn't perfect anymore. Everything wasn't like kumbaya, obviously, right? So now I did, like I said, I did dig. I tried to dig. And if somebody else can find it, then let me know. Because I couldn't find, and you would think that a fight like this was happening where apparently Kimora's telling them, you know, hey, quiet down, everybody's looking and that kind of thing. If something like that was happening and it's about Tupac, Biggie, Diddy at this time, Jay-Z and all that, somebody's going to say something. It's not going to stay quiet. It's just not. There's just too many mouths. So I did digging. I didn't find anything on a specific, like, quote unquote, argument fight that got loud enough that Kimora had come over and pulled Kidada away to go pat her their nose. And the one thing I did find, though, is that Gene Deal, that's why I think his last name's Deal. Anyways, he does confirm that at this awards show, he had to stop Kidada when she got back to her table from drinking her ginger ale because Diddy had urinated in it. So that part, his bodyguard kind of did come out and say that he couldn't believe that Diddy had done that. So where I can find information that's going to corroborate what somebody else is saying, I'll go ahead and say, okay, that probably did happen, because I honestly do think that Diddy would pull something like that. So now he's drinking his cognac and all of that. Kidada basically lets Sean know Tupac thinks you were involved in having him shot, and she says that you all were friends, or you were close, or however you want to say that, and tells him basically you need to fix this. And he's what is it? He says, and I'm going to quote this one: "Why the fuck would that end think I had anything to do with it?" And Kidada retorted, "Sean, can you blame him?" Apparently, Sean shot back, "Hell yeah, I blame him. We had a good thing going, all of us. That end turned on me, and he has the fucking balls to blame me for his shooting." It's, okay. So, it, right here, like I said, it just goes on, just down that little rabbit hole. But again, it's all tabloidish. There's nothing really all that substantial or anything that's really like, oh, wow, that's a shocker. And I didn't know that people thought this, because we've all thought things. We all have our assumptions. We all have our thoughts on what went down during all of that. So now at the very end of it, he talks about how Kim was having to basically pump up Diddy's ego by saying your catalog is crazy. It could be a lot of songs, in replying to how many song or awards he was going to get. Oh, this guy in the ego. That part I do believe. Not necessarily that conversation happened, but I kind of believe that he does have a problem with his ego and he needs it pumped up, because So chapter 9, going back to Cali. Okay. It talks about a wild night with Will and Jada and XXXXX. Don't know who it is. I can make my assumptions, but on this one, I just kind of don't want to. It talks about how, let's see. Yes. It was like a wild night. She was in the room with Jada, and Sean was coming out of the bedroom with XXXX and Will Smith. And yes, XXXX attended the parties from time to time. And it says that she could see him and Will kind of snuggled up on the bed together. And she was always grateful it wasn't her that was asked to join that room, because she didn't like him. Here's another conversation that she happens to like just be in the room for. And they go back to talking about getting rid of Biggie under the guise of basically just not protecting him anymore, because he's not loyal. He is worth more gone than he is with them at this point, because he's not loyal. He's going to leave. And then, if he leaves, that money goes with him. And so here we have it setting up the fact of like, oh, but it's not necessarily that we're going to do something to him. Instead, we're just not going to give him the protection. We're just going to be like, oh, what? Sorry, you're leaving. Go find your own protection. Yeah, go find your own protection, because you're leaving, right? Let's see. And then he talks about how the East Coast, West Coast beef is more lucrative than they thought, but it's getting dangerous. And business first thing in the morning, damn, because you want it. But you don't got nothing to worry about. You got a pass daddy. I don't know why I just did that. Oh man. And then apparently XXX was taken aback by the turn of events by his reply by saying, quote unquote, "Sean, are you saying what I think you're saying?" Sean continued, "It's taxing on my resources to protect people. Someone that isn't 100% on my team can't get 100% of my protection." And so there's the setup for, I think that's I really do wish they had all just not done that. They had some great damn music. And you got Faith Evans, Mary J. Blige, Jay-Z. Like they were making good freaking music in the day. Well, Diddy wasn't. He was finding the talent. But the others were making good music. It just is such a horrible loss of talent, honestly. Let's see. Going from there, where am I? Am I still on chapter? Oh, yeah, back to Callie. Okay. So now we're going to go on to I was just dragged right into the middle of it. It was, if what was happening over here ever comes out, will I be held as an accomplice? Let's see. Throughout the meeting, really was, if he leaves, he takes all the money I invested into creating him. So again, just kind of setting up the story as to why, if something does happen to Biggie, oh well, because, he just should have been a little more loyal, and we would have had a few more guys with him when he was in Cali. In there, so Sean walks over to, it says, it states that basically she knows here that Biggie was going to be unalived. And in this, she's like, I dare not say anything else about it. And then he walked over to a safe where he pulled out a bag marked with the XXX, whatever, his name on it, and then turns it to him and says, that's why you're worth your weight in gold. You understand me. Here's a little something for you to take care of my people. Oh, man. And then after that, again, she kind of has to get out of that one too, because she's got to go up to the baby. And now, don't get me wrong. I know I have kids. I know that you do have to leave situations and go take care of your kid, but it's just convenient how he makes it seem like, it's anytime anything really explosive is going to come out with more details, that it's like, oh, okay, well, I get the gist of what you guys are saying because I can read it in the tabloids, but I've got to go take care of the baby. So I'll just read it in the tabloids tomorrow, and then I'll just put two and two together. That's basically all it is. I'm so sorry, but that's just... She forced a smile because the dude sat there and said that he would really like to spend time with the baby. And she's like, yeah, not a chance in hell in her mind, but smiles and says that would be great, and made her exit. And that's the end of that chapter. Chapter 10, Lies You Tell. This is so insane, I'm telling you. Oh, man. I even skipped over some of that because I was just being so frustrated. Okay. In chapter 10, we're going to bring, he's going to bring J-Lo into this conversation now. And as he brings J-Lo into this conversation, basically it's a conversation that Kim and Sean are having, and Sean's telling Kim that he's got to date, he's going to have to date this girl, and she's a video girl. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's saying, well, it's just for cover, in public, it's for cover. I mean, they were, I believe J-Lo and Diddy were engaged for a time there. So I don't know if it was like, I don't know how that kind of relationship works. So I guess I really can't say too much on it. But she does here talk about, he puts in there that she was kind of jealous because, J-Lo's body, and was he want, like, this kind of thing, like comparing herself to J-Lo. And then she has to stop and is like, wait a minute, what am I doing? He's not really into females anyway. So what do I care what female he is? It's okay. Yeah, I get what she's saying, like what he's saying in that one, kind of. It's like, yeah, why would I be jealous of Video Girl when he's into guys. So she's asking why is she getting jealous about it or whatever. And then she calmed herself down, all that stuff, says, why the hell are, she tells him, why the hell are you telling me? He sighed, I wanted you to find out from me first. She's like I give a shit. He came with the favorite line of, I love you. I hate that line. And she basically says that line was getting old. Those are heavy words, but at this point it was getting old because every time he did something stupid or did something wrong or hit her or cheated on her or whatever the next thing he was going to do, that was what he was coming back to her with is, oh, I love you, baby. I love you. I'm sorry. All that. It's just love bombing somebody. So it goes on. Like, I don't see, this is why it's so hard to read, like to summarize this book, because I want to explain more about it, because I have other details from like tabloids or just what we're reading in lawsuits and everything else. But I'm trying to just cover the very small amount of information that's in this damn book. She tells Sean goodbye for a final time. No, not really. But this is what he's making out to be like, this is going to be my final time leaving you. Goodbye forever, that kind of thing. And then he says, tell Quincy I miss him. And they claim emotional manipulation, which that is a thing. It definitely is from abusers. But how much of the, we don't know how much of this is real anyway. So chapter 11 is Mo Problems. I'm really thirsty. Let me have another. You want to go give me another Four Loko? No, I'm kidding. Okay. On this one, we have in chapter 11, we have Biggie's trip to Cali, and the writer makes sure there is proof of the unalivable things that have happened in the arena of Diddy and the people that he knows that kind of meet their untimely end. He kind of makes sure that he puts it in here, basically stating that people wouldn't know. There are ways. So she was drinking wine. He came over. She let him in the house, and he was looking around trying to see who was in her house. And she's telling him, look, we're not together no more. Why do you care who I'm sleeping with or who I'm dating or who I'm whatever with? And then he sits there and says that basically that's not allowed. And so he's just kind of checking all of that. He asks her if there's someone waiting for her. She says no, but we're not together and all of that, what I said. And then Sean got angry, slammed her into the ground, pulled a 22 out and sat it on the end table. And this is where I was saying. He turned to her calmly, and then she's saying how did we get here? And then she says, Sean, that's not love. And he picked up the gun and cocked it. He looked at her almost thoughtfully and asked, have you ever heard, if I can't have you, no one can? I mean, come on. Sean, please don't, please. Quincy will hear. Sean smiled and put the gun away, saying, oh, this is just for dramatic effect. I would never shoot you. If I was going to off you, no one will trace it to me. You know, how many people I've had to take care of over the years. It would be quiet. Something in your food or drink, something that will never get back to me. I wouldn't shoot you. Do you understand? So again, like I said, kind of that little nod to, all the speculation and the questions. There was another article out yesterday that I read about now it's tying him to Brittany Murphy, and I don't remember her husband's name. I think it was Jack, to their pneumonias. The coroner for Kim Porter. I mean, he passed from pneumonia. Kim passed from pneumonia. Oh man, it's just okay. So that's basically chapter 11. I told you there's not much information in here that's worth anything. Chapter 13, or that was chapter 12. I'm sorry. No, chapter 12 is Mama's Love, and this one does kind of bother me because now he's bringing Miss Wallace into it, Ms. Wallace, and I think that woman has already had to deal with so much that they're going to bring her into this. And this is another one. I know that she has, or from what I've read, because I don't know her, but I've read that she has come out and talked about how, Sean didn't pay the money that he owed for Biggie's music and all the money that Diddy made off of Biggie and stuff like that. I've heard and read the stories about that. But my problem is the way this guy is writing in the book, like she went to Diddy in a public place and was basically begging him for money. Like, I do not know if she ever had to beg Diddy for money. I think it was more the fact of like, hey, I mean, if it was one of my sons and I knew, like, you as a mom, you're like, no, this something's not mathing here. The math isn't mathing. Something's not right. It's not working in my mind. Like, none of this makes sense. He made so much money after Biggie was gone, and he's still profiting off of that. But okay, so this is my biggest problem with this chapter. It's in here stating that she then confronts him about, like, in this argument that they're having. She says, basically, did you unalive my son? Obviously, she didn't say unalive, but I can't use the word that she used. So, and she says that you got rich off my son, and now you're keeping all his money. That is, in a nutshell, that is pretty much all of that chapter is talking about how Kim felt bad for Miss Wallace because she's sitting there and she knows things, but she can't say anything. She has to keep her, like, basically bite her tongue and not say anything. Sent shivers up her spine and just smiled at Miss Wallace, and that was pretty much all she did, except for then it claims that she feared for Miss Wallace's life. Sean is most dangerous when he feels threatened. And I have the last line of that chapter, basically. Actually, I'll go a little further. The last page, which is very short, or the last page of this chapter, says, quote, "No, she could not physically threaten him, but this threat was very real. If she goes public with her accusations, Sean's image would be damaged. I have felt for myself the extents he will go through in order to protect that image." And that's the end of that chapter. In chapter 13, this is where she's going to bring Faith Evans into an argument, or not, well, somewhat of an argument with Diddy. And in this, basically, now the book is pulling Faith Evans into knowing that Diddy basically offed Biggie. So my problem is that if you've got all of these people, I mean, look, Faith Evans has a child with Biggie. It's even mentioned in this chapter, and I won't say their daughter's name. That's not my place to do. I didn't name Diddy's kids' names either when I read that statement. But I think that when you're pulling all of these names in just to make something look a little more scandalous or even more conspiracy, it just doesn't feel right. It feels kind of dirty. I can't think of a better word than that one at the moment. It just felt kind of dirty. She talks to how she sits there and is confronting Diddy and talking about how she leaned forward, unintentionally threatening Sean leaned forward, sorry, and said it in a low tone. Yeah, but Sean, Chris and I had a child together. Sean leaned back. He let out a deep breath. I'm going to take care of you. You're not like Chris. You're loyal. Faith had a tear in her eyes as she responded, he didn't have to die. I mean, so again, this is basically, that's that entire chapter. It just talks about that. Faith is crying. She goes to leave the room. Diddy tries to call her back into the room, and she just walks out. She's like, "Nah, I'm out of here. This, it's not going to happen." Okay, let's move on to chapter 14. In chapter 14, we get to the shooting at the club. This chapter is called Outshine, and it talks about after the club shooting where J-Lo, Shine, Diddy go into the club. J-Lo's got the weapon in her purse. She hands it to Diddy, and this is all allegedly because she was released and not charged, and who knows if she will be charged anytime soon because everything's kind of coming back out. But basically, club shooting goes down. She goes to Diddy's place, and Kim's there. And so Kim's hearing this entire conversation about J-Lo screaming and cursing at Diddy because what is she supposed to do? Her attorneys are asking, or the police are asking for a statement, and her attorneys are like not going to cover for this. And he's telling her to get her hit, to contact his attorneys. And she's like, my attorneys don't play that way. And all of this stuff. And he's telling her money talks and everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So then it talks about how apparently, I think Jennifer said, why in the hell do you think Biggie's replacement will take the fall for you? And then it has Kim questioning, like, Biggie's replacement, huh? But it's obvious. I mean, come on. We know what is supposed to be being said there. So people in jail don't cross connected people on the outside, he tells her. And she looked deflated. And then apparently, allegedly, supposedly, J-Lo says, so you'll off him too? And now Kim's looking around going like, how much does this girl know? Like, seriously, what do you know that I don't know? Well, probably the same amount as what this book says you know. I mean, she probably just walked into partial conversations and then made sure she had to walk out before anything real was said. Just saying. Allegedly. Supposedly. Yep. And that is literally that entire chapter. It just kind of goes on and on, though. So it makes it a little longer. But there's one part that is interesting because it says, but you were going to make Shine the label's go-to man when talking about how Shine's going to take the fall for that shooting in the club. And Sean sighed, quote, well, artists with his talent are a dime a dozen. Looking at Jen, he continued and said, he's not a once-in-a-lifetime find like Jennifer Lopez. I was like, come on, really? Anybody else like just glad that they're not spending the money on this book? So then he tried to make a threesome happen with Kim, J-Lo, and him. Apparently it didn't happen, not on that day at least. Chapter 15. I am really trying to get through this at this point because I don't know. I could probably just sum it up without having to go chapter by chapter at this point, huh? Okay. Let's do that. Okay. Chapter 15 is Queen Bitch. Kimora asking Kim if she was pregnant and hinting that she also knew what Diddy did to Biggie. Basically saying to Kim, oh, you got to watch out. Like, are you pregnant? And Kim being like, oh, shit, am I? And then her telling her, what are you going to do? Because, basically Sean's got a bad temper and you don't know what he's going to do to you if he finds out you're pregnant and all of that stuff. Okay. So then she has to sit there for a minute and think about it. And basically has her, like, it has Kimora saying, damn girl, good luck after what he did to Chris. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. So now you're pulling Kimora into this and saying that Kimora knew what happened to Biggie. So now we've got another witness after the fact. But you've got another person. So this book is completely every single chapter. You've got at least 2 more people knowing what supposedly, allegedly, Diddy did to Biggie. That sounds so weird when I say it like that. What Diddy did to Biggie. Let's see. And then, yeah, and that's it. She says, I'll hit you up. And then she left and said, good luck one more time. Chapter 16, Christian. So she announces that she's pregnant with Christian. And to her surprise, instead of being like really, really upset at her, he's like overjoyed. He's gleeful. He's happy. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do this. We're going to have a family and everything's going to be great. All that stuff. So she's like, she starts getting excited about it too. But then he starts talking about how everybody's going to want to have her. And she's thinking to herself, like, what are you talking about? And she knows what he's talking about. It's an S ritual to keep their money and keep their power and keep all of this going. Like, he says to her something about how, like, how do you think we have all that we have? Do you ever want for anything? Do you ever need anything? All that stuff. Well, we got it because of we're doing this, 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 and this. And so basically, talking about how she's basically going to have to give her body up to whoever wants it during her ninth month of pregnancy so that they can keep their money and keep their power and keep all of that flowing in. Really, really bizarre. Very, very bizarre. But, you know, if that's your thing. So he goes on to say, everybody's going to want that. And she's upset. And then he's like, well, not everybody. You know, Will, Jada, XXX. Sean, I'm having your baby. He verbally basically waved her off. It'll be fine. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's going to be good. She starts crying. And then she eventually, like, kind of gives into it. Like, her soul's broken. She doesn't know what to do. This kind of thing. So he says, we're going to have a beautiful baby. He ordered some food. And that night she cried herself to sleep. And she was going to give her child a biblical, heavy Christian name. So she named the baby Christian. And the only reason I am saying any of these kids' names is if they're in the book being spoken about, because again, I did not name them when I was reading off their statement, and I will not name them at any other time because, yes, they're all adults now, but still, you know, except for a couple of Diddy's kids who seem to be following in their dad's footprints, I'm not going to blame kids for what their dads do. Like, just, it's not going to happen. I have kids. I'm not going to blame them because their dads does what their dad does. Chapter 17, Broken Promises. So apparently, it got to the point to where he was becoming extremely abusive. And it was going to be hard to keep it out of the media and stuff like that, all the bruises and everything else. And so, you know, she had just been cast for a new film. He comes in, there's some flowers with a card that says, like, had a great time yesterday or whatever. I'm not reading it verbatim. And then he, like, threw the card at her and then read, like, he slapped her so hard that she hit the ground. He's asking her who the F she was with, and she's trying to explain it was a producer, but she wasn't with him. They were just talking about the film, all of that stuff. He basically loses his temper, and she's pleading with him, please stop. It doesn't stop. She ends up in the hospital from the beating. She ends up in the hospital. And then in the hospital, she's laying there, and he's trying to, again, I'm sorry, forgive me, I love you, all that crap. She's saying stay away from her. And so And I'm not laughing at that. I'm just like, this is tabloid. He says, you have our beautiful son, our family. It's just at that point, it says she's had enough. The when you slut it out right before giving birth, ? Are you effing S-ing me? Can I say shitting? Whatever. Stay away from me. Don't come near me or my kids. And that's because I believe it was when she was with those twins is when he also had a baby with another female, and I don't remember the girl's name. So anyhow, she tells him stay away from the kids or she'll be calling the cops. He basically says that he'll just make her look crazy. And this is the producer that I was speaking about earlier, who, like many of the people in this, like that wrote a book or like were going to write a book or crossed Diddy, all kind of passed away from pneumonia. It's very, very shady, but I have, okay. Let's see. So that's yeah. Okay, sweet goodbyes. Here's where now we're going to move on to. We're going to move right here. And I don't know why I'm pointing because y'all can't see if you're watching. So she says that, or the book says that she says that she had gotten into a vault where Diddy had kept like all of the S tapes of the parties that were going both ways, all ways, sideways, upside down, all of that stuff. But this is where apparently, supposedly, allegedly, she actually found videos with Usher, Lil Bow Wow, and Justin Bieber. And then she, according to the book, allegedly, she's thinking, is he grooming Quincy? This has to end. So this is when she invites, she had Kimora over. Diddy comes over to the place, and she basically tells Diddy that she's got the footage and tells him he's got to get out. And he's like, now this is where I have a slight problem over the simple fact that it says that, and this is, again, I'm not saying that this is true. I don't know, because I personally don't know many adults. Like, I don't know this many adults. I don't know any adults like this who would keep these kind of secrets. I just don't. I don't know one person who would find out that somebody was doing something to a child, and all of them were children at the time. I don't know one person who would see that and be like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, I'll keep your secret. No, what? So therefore, again, I don't know if Kimora actually knew this or if, I don't know. So, okay, so that's my really quick rant on that one. But she says to Sean that she's got the footage. He's asking what she's talking about. He's saying that, or she's saying that she's got the tapes of Usher, all of the ones I already named. And then Kimora screaming out like Usher too, and questioning things and stuff like that, and what the F is going on. Sean was getting increasingly angry at this whole situation. Ends up where Kim is telling him to get out, or she's calling the cops, and then he ended up lunging at her, or attacking her, knocked her over. She was hurt, but Kimora's screaming to stop. Kim ends up kicking him a few times, and he falls down the stairs. This is where Kimora allegedly decides she's leaving because ambulance are on their way. She witnessed, but I'm just going to take off. Again, don't know how much. I don't trust this guy who wrote this, because I don't know any of my friends who have seen me hurt or injured, and now I've got my ex down a flight of stairs that I kicked him down, and now the ambulance are coming. That means police are probably going to come, and my friend's going to roll out and be like, yeah, I don't want no part of this, even though that they saw this guy attack me first, and it was insult. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. So, yeah. So the Sean Combs days finally came to an end of that chapter, and now the finale. In this finale, I'm going to say that once again, Kimura is called, and she's talking to Kimura, and apparently, allegedly, she's telling Kimura what's going on with her, and Kimura's telling her, girl, that does not sound like the flu, that something's wrong. And so they're talking about how she needs to go to the hospital, and Kim's saying how, oh no, I'm just going to lay down for a little bit. But during this time, if you believe what this guy is writing, if you believe what he's writing, he's literally having her like on her, you have her coming to the end and she knows something's not right, but instead of like making sure she gets some help, instead of doing that, he's going to have us believe that instead of getting help, she decided that she needed to write all this down on like her laptop or on a flash drive, whatever. And then, what? Wait, why are you laying there? Like, you're talking about, like, it has her writing, supposedly, allegedly, that basically, she called Sean and she's like, I'm lying in my bed. All I could think about was the kids, my babies, who are with this monster, and the man that I now suspect of having done this to me. Okay, so again, she's like, let's just say fading, because that's going to be the easiest way to do this. She calls him up and she's like, I know what you did to me. And then those tapes I had, those weren't the only ones. And I'm going to send out a message and send it out to people. So now, apparently, according to what this guy is saying, she sent copies of those out to people. So lots of people now know about Usher and Bieber and Bow Wow and whoever else was on those. And then she states in it, I'm going to be on live like Heavy D, like Biggie, like Pop, like so many others. And it's because he is a monster, plain and simple. But before hanging up, she simply said, that's not the only copy you fuck. Then I shoot out a group text. I let everyone know he got me. Then I call 911. Really? You're writing all of this. You're sending out text messages. You are like writing. Yeah, I already said that, right? You're writing this all down. You're sending out text messages. You're making phone calls and you're doing all of this, but like that you aren't going to be around tomorrow, but you want to make sure all of this is taken care of before you get help so that you're there with your kids tomorrow. I mean, does that make sense to anybody? Because I'm saving my life so that I can take care of my kids, especially if I believe all of this about this man. And I do believe some of this about this man. But I'm saying I'm not leaving my kids with him. I'm not going to give up on myself and be like, nope, I got to write all this out. I'm saving myself so I can get my kids. That's insanity. So it has it basically saying, and I'll go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and I'll just say this. This is the last page of it, and it says, quote, as I sit here waiting for the ambulance, I am writing this chapter and praying that I make it to the hospital. I don't feel like writing anymore. I may not be around to see it in print. It's okay. I'm sending it out. He won't get away with this. I will have my say, my final words. Sean Combs will get exposed, even if I lose my life doing it. My kids have always been my most cherished possessions. I want the world to know that. But more importantly, I want them to know. Okay. So, okay. Anybody who's a parent, well, I guess not everybody, but this is not, okay, first of all, if you know that you are not going to be around tomorrow, but your kids are the most important thing to you, but you know that there is a possibility you could be around tomorrow if you did something besides write in a journal or on a flash drive if you did, you know, if you got some help, there's a possibility. But instead of doing that, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna kind of, I'm gonna just lay here and I'm gonna make sure I write this because this is more important than my kids. No, I do not believe that she wrote this. I I'm with her. I'm with her kids on this one. I mean, this guy, it's independently published. The last time I checked, because I was on there a couple times today just to double check, because when I click on Amazon and I looked for the book again, it pops up with the sorry, basically, and it's no longer there. So I cannot find it on Amazon anymore. And I do believe that I'll Be Sure. I think it was him. It could have been because I thought it was I'll Be Sure. Sent a cease and desist letter. And so Amazon stopped selling the book. I already said that about the kids. And then, yeah, like I said, when it comes to that whole, like, all these other people, the Brittany Murphy and her husband, apparently in that story, his trainer was also like friends with Diddy or Diddy's trainer, except for they lived in like, oh no, because Diddy also lived in California. It doesn't matter. Okay. So anyways, apparently Brittany's husband owed that trainer money, but he wasn't paying him. And so he got Diddy into doing the Brittany Murphy. So that way it would hurt her husband. And then just so happens like 4 months later, her husband passed away the exact same way. The Ed Winters was the coroner who did Kim Porter's autopsy. And in the first one that he did, it did have it deferred for further investigation or testing and stuff like that. But he wasn't going to sit there and say one way or the other. And then once he was off of it, new person came on and named it as lumbar pneumonia. But I don't know. When it comes to the kids, I don't believe that the women that this book is claiming knew the information wouldn't say something. I don't believe that because I have seen some of the, not personally, but like everybody sees them on TV, you know, Entertainment Tonight, all that stuff, whatever you want to find them on. I think some of them have had like their own reality shows and stuff like that. So, you know, you see them as parents and I don't see them just turning a blind eye and being like, yeah, you know, that's okay. No problem. That's my personal opinion, at least. I don't see it. Now you've got, and like I said, this entire, I'm going to close this right here because I don't need to look at my notes anymore because, oh my goodness. As I was reading this in that 30 minutes that it took me to read this, I was sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, this is nothing more than what you can find in tabloids. And I did try to fact check most of what I read, but most of what I read, you can either find it in tabloids or it's really not there. It's like under, like you'll find columns or things about people being in certain areas because like at the award show, everybody's at their award shows. But I couldn't find that. But with that many mouths in a room, you would think somebody's going to talk. Somebody's going to say something like, "Hey, guess what popped off?" You know, the Jamie Foxx and the Heavy D and like all these people who, well, Jamie Foxx and I'll Be Sure, who almost did lose their battle. You know, they have come out and said that they believe that, according to what I've read or seen, they've come out both and kind of was like, yeah, they think that Diddy had something to do with it. Personally, I think that he's a serious scumbag. I think he got away with things for way too long, and everything is kind of catching up to him now. And he'll get, you know, it's not going to just go away. Oh, then you got Ashton Kutcher, and then now you've got Will Smith and Jada Smith's kids. And this is tabloids, so I'm not saying that they're actually saying it because if you look at the pictures and stuff, it's got, you know, like the kid crying and saying, oh, he took my virginity, like these kind of things. And so it's just getting really out of control. And some of the stuff you don't really have to go like over the top with. I mean, the lawsuits and the indictment, all of that is already over the damn top, and those are facts. So you don't have to go overboard just to make it more salacious, just to make more like money off it. This guy, like, he sits there and says that he's got tapes, he's got evidence, he's got this, he's got that. Well, if you've got all that, and now if you've got all that, you are now another person who is sitting there going, yeah, I know shit, but I'm not going to say shit. What's that make you? Just somebody trying to make more money. Just like you're claiming Diddy was doing, like he was using people, walking on people, you know. And yes, I agree with that part, but you're no better. You are absolutely not better when you are just dragging names through the mud, pulling them, like if it's going to make a headline for you, or if it's going to sell this book a little more, if it's going to do whatever. And no, I did not pay for this book because I will not put a penny in this man's pocket. I don't know. I think that we need to let everything play out in court, and the people who are going to go down are going to go down. We've already got, you know, Cuba Gooding Jr. being talked about. We've got, who else is it? I get so frustrated when it comes to children. And I knew eventually I was going to get to the ending there where it talks about Usher and Justin and Bow Wow and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, this is just horrendous. And I don't think that any one of those guys need to come out and say anything that happened to them. If anything happened to them while they were kids, that is for them to decide. That is for them to deal with. And I'm not saying not to go to the courts and talk. I'm saying they don't need to come out to us. They don't need to go to the public and say, hey, yeah, this happened to me and blah, blah, blah. That's not our business. That's not my business. I don't need to know what happened when, like in that aspect. I don't need them to come out and confess anything or say anything because it's not my place. Victims need to have their dignity, and if their dignity is not having to come out to the public and say something that happened, if it happened, then they need to be left alone. And that's my thing. But Diddy, I do believe he has had a lot to do with Pac and Biggie's unaliving and all the abuse and everything else. So that's just my opinion. And I just honestly don't waste money on this crap. This is crap. You can read all of this in tabloids. Nothing's new. Nothing is groundbreaking. So let me know what you think.